Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to this edition of the Duval Dive. I am honored to join you as Kyle Nash, the student of the game here of Jaguars on SI. And I am privileged once again to talk some Jaguars football, off season as it may be, air quotes, off season as it may be, with my personal champion. See, listen, through the magic of technology, normally we would do things. I'm in Greece right now. You could call it a vacation if you want, but I know a man who always makes it feel like a vacation talking football, and he's dressed up rather sharp, like he just came from the discotheque. Travis D. Holmes, Big Tech. What's going on, my man?
Man, I'm doing well. I just came from the discotheque. I would rather be coming from somewhere different, maybe the club, out of thunderclapping,
See,
something, man. I don't know.
that's how they do clubs in Europe. It's the discotheque. That's,
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I gotta get y'all on game. Teach y'all how to dance for real.
I mean, hey, listen, what was the joke I made before? Like, you talking about thunderclap. I would be happy to see somebody going, red stripe, helping our Greek friends dance for over 80 years. Okay, that would be fine for me.
Wow, that sounded mad Irish though, but I got you.
I know that wasn't my best Jamaican. I can't do that. I just didn't dare. Like, it was, you've heard me do a better Cisco impression, and yet on the show, it was not perfect. I get it.
My wife would not be happy with you. You know, she is half Jamaican.
Yeah, well, if I did it too good, then it would be appropriation, right? Anyway,
Lord.
it's causing trouble already. Here we
Yep.
go. So speaking of causing trouble, I'm happy to throw shouts at the Discord group, the Jaguars Discord group, that Travis collected some questions from the mailbag, for the mailbag, I should say. Y'all came up big. We didn't use everything because we only have 30 minutes, but you guys came in with a lot of great questions. Some of the questions were similar. Some of the questions are ones that we're putting in our back pocket for future use, but all your contributions are greatly appreciated, and I just want to say thank you up front. Now that I've been magnanimous and grateful for the support of the Duval Doubt in this mailbag episode, I'm also going to be selfish now and attack a particular topic I'm curious about. If only I had somebody with a great understanding of the defensive back positions. Oh, hey, good to see you there, champion. First of all,
Let's go.
our first question from Big Red 6. I have questions about either Savage or Johnson being a full-time safety. Travis, feel free to address those, but let me start with this. What's kind of the difference in their skill set, if there is one?
Well, the difference in their skill set, if anything, from what we've been able to see at least, is Savage has had a a number of years with good snaps showing that he's a solid man coverage safety. Like we've seen that, even though he didn't do it like a significant percentage of his snaps in Green Bay because they kind of used him in an incorrect way, especially last season. But
Ooh.
but in these situations when they did it, he was actually really solid at playing it. Whereas with Antonio Johnson, I mean, in Doug Peterson's opening press conference after they originally drafted him, he said he's a box safety. He's not generally the guy who you're going to put in a man coverage situation. That was his words. So if I'm to believe what they saw in their tape analysis before even drafting the player, it still holds true in the NFL. And this was a zone team last season under Caldwell. Then you have to believe that maybe Antonio Johnson is not that man coverage type of safety, whereas Savage might be. Where that's good is maybe he doesn't have to be all the time. Like maybe he just has to be good enough. And Savage has shown he can do it, so that probably gives the edge to the veteran who he is. If you're talking about both of them being a full-time safety, but to the question, uh, I'm not 100% sure either of them is actually going to be a quote-unquote full-time safety.
Oh,
Uh, and that makes this a curious question because I'm not 100% sure if it's asking the right question, which is what role will they be playing?
hmm.
We've had a lot of these conversations. We've had a lot of the film review as far as looking at what the Atlanta Falcons ran under Ryan Nielsen, and I mean whether it's a 3-3, whether it's a 4-2-5, whatever the defense might end up being as far as their base. A lot of the times on the early downs, they have a big safety. And so instead of a third linebacker, they might have a big safety kind of just play that slot nickel role or play that will linebacker role, if that makes any kind of sense. In my opinion, that would be Savage. Someone who can play man against these slot receivers or these tight ends, etc., who can also fill in the run game, and you don't take away anything as far as the passing game is concerned. Like someone who can kind of play right in between both of those. And then you get into those passing downs later. Maybe he'll be back at safety. Maybe he'll be somewhere else. I don't. That's all to be played out in the early times of camp. So maybe on early downs, you may see Antonio Johnson playing safety in the actual safety spot with Savage playing in that big safety role slash what nickel cornerback role essentially.
I
And
mean, the assumption obviously too is they'll be sharing that third level with Andre Cisco. Obviously.
Cisco's the mainstay. He's on the field. If the defense is on the field, he's on the field. So that's my assumption there. And again, this is all just my opinion based on what I believe, based on what I've seen from these individual players and their skill sets so far.
Yeah.
So
as rookie camp starting, and as we get into mini camp, all of this could change based on things you or I see and
correct.
Injuries and all that. I could even throw another wrinkle in this just for the hell of it. My most underrated player on the roster, according to our 2 episodes ago, Ronald Darby, throws a whole other wrinkle into this humpy bumpy, right?
Well, that's what makes it fun though, because we've seen all the different packages that they like to run, where you may have one of the cornerbacks play like 90% of the snaps, and then you get one of the other cornerbacks that are playing 70%, and it's like, wait, what's going on here? And then you have a third cornerback who's playing like 50% of the snaps, and you're like, wait, how does that even make sense mathematically? It's because they're using these guys in different packages, and I think Jarian said it best before he was drafted. When someone, it was in draft times, asked him, hey, are you a safety or are you a cornerback? And he's like, nobody wants, basically the gist of it was all defensive coordinators simply want 4 cornerbacks out there, and that's essentially what it is. I'm a cornerback playing safety, or I'm a safety playing cornerback. I'm a cornerback at the end of the day. And what I'm looking at that to mean is maybe Jarian's gonna be outside sometimes, maybe he'll be in the slot sometimes. Maybe he might not play 100% of the snaps, but it may not matter as long as they get the right guys and the right packages on the field on the right situations, we'll be fine.
It's interesting. The way I hear you describe this is almost like in basketball when they talk about positionless basketball. Like it's all, and granted, we say positionless basketball, it's all cute, but you need at least one big guy that can do some pounding. And that would be, like your harder hitting safety guy. Everybody, any basketball team wants 5 dudes that can chuck it from the cheap seats and score it every time. I mean, duh. And that's what I love about Jarian's point. Remember, it's Jarian Jones. We got to get that right, because just so you let me know, Mr. Jones, we hear you.
Yes.
But shouts to Jamal St. Cyr, by the way, for keeping us right on that. Bing. But listen, I see that point, and then you mentioned a coach wants everybody to cover. It's who's hitting harder, and then who's the guy that's a little smarter, I guess, kind of the point guard of the defensive backs, if you will. That would always be Cisco. I don't think that's going to change. So, I'm glad I led with that question, because you blew my mind right there with just that concept. So this is why
it's a lot like the old Broncos when they used to have these little mud-looking defenses. And again, Nielsen's very good at showing those phantom pressures where he's showing like there's 7 people blitzing and then only 2 come or only 4 come or whatever it may be. And that makes it interesting because, again, you don't know who's coming. You don't know who's going. Because you have 3 cornerbacks, maybe 4 cornerbacks on the field, but then 2 of them are blitzing or whatever it may be. It makes it a mess from a quarterback, from an offensive line, from offensive blocking. So you're no longer being reactionary, playing all this zone like Caldwell would always play. You are now basically putting your foot down on the gas and making the offense respond to what you do. And I love that.
And if you have good cover guys that are covering at breakfast, remember, breakfast secondaries are secondaries that are good up front. Dinner secondaries or supper secondaries are ones that pick up later. If you're going to be a team that blitzes a lot or has a strong presence up front, which we're hearing the Jags will, you want that breakfast secondary. That's how you create the turnovers. What is it? Detroit's head coach, Man Campbell, kind of said it. I mean, I like sacks, obviously, but pressures are the goal because pressures are what cause interceptions and turnovers. And I think that's an adequate point to make here too. But
Okay.
great question, man. We're already 10 minutes in on that one answer. That was great. Let's jump to another
Goodness.
one. I know that'll get some depth for us here from NSFB. We talked all the possibilities here enough, especially on this show. But I think a discussion on the left tackle spot is interesting for 24 going into 25. Cam and Walker Little, Cam Robinson and Walker Little are in their final years of the contracts and would be curious to know what y'all think we do versus what Bulky will do, that's a hell of a conversation. Bonus question, next Jaguar to get a contract. Let's do the next Jaguar to get a contract question first because I think that's easier. It's Andre Sisco, right?
Ooh.
What are we doing here? It's obviously Andre Sisco. You don't think so?
I think it's obviously Tyson Campbell. I mean, the fact that they've already been in conversation.
I hear that. If I'm Tyson Campbell's people, I pound the table too, for the very reason this very intelligent-looking man who just came out of the discotheque has told me since Ryan Nielsen's acquisition that this is a man that runs a lot of man-style defense, and we don't know what Campbell is in that yet. So today, the answer is Andre Sisco because at the end of the day, you're still going to get a top guy at a position that's damn hard to find good talent in nowadays.
I think Tyson Campbell would be insane if he even got a week into training camp before having a contract signed. Personally, that's my opinion, because if he has an ankle injury, he has a hamstring injury, he has anything that may throw the rest of his season off, I think negotiations end immediately. And all of a sudden, he's in a situation like Yannick Ngakoue where he's not able to get what he wants simply because he can't get on the field to get that. And you're stuck at that point. Like, then you're in a franchise tag situation, at the end of the season, and you're kind of in that prove it deal kind of scenario. Like, that's the worst case scenario from my perspective for him coming off that hamstring injury last year.
He's wise to compromise and not push on the chips in the table here for that. That's an interesting point, obviously. But yeah, I think Nielsen's scheme upcoming and it about to be different is something I could work against him. I could. I maybe I front load it and leave myself the ability to cut bait. Gosh, if only there were GMs that did that. Oh wait,
so and you have 2 seasons before Trevor's numbers really start getting up there. So yeah, that's how you want to do it.
Just say it. He's one of many examples. Let's be clear.
That's fact.
But then let's go back to the offensive line question. He signs Cam and Walker Little's contracts. What do you think he does?
I'll let you take this one, Mr. Offensive Lineman.
Listen, I'm gonna start with this. I didn't think Cam Robinson should have been extended in the first place. All right. I forget the name of the tackle in the draft at the time. I feel like an idiot for it. But there was another excellent tackle on the market at the time, who I think the Jags would have been wise to draft. Do I think he would have done an Anton Harrison? No, it's a lot to ask an Anton Harrison to rack later. By the way, you mentioned specifically left tackle. Here's one I'll give you, NSFB. I think Anton Harrison is your future left tackle in Jacksonville. How about that? Hell, if they did it in 24, I am down. Walker Little is a different conversation. And credit to T. Wiggs for slowing my roll as far as being a Walker Little cheerleader. Because for one, I think he should be a guy that sees a lot of time. I think this is a guy that should be playing guard, but then they got Ezra Cleveland in. So that's a whole other confusion. Because Cam Robinson is there, Walker Little can't start. But because Cam Robinson is injury prone at this page, and I know T. Wiggs didn't agree with me, and that's his right. But shouts to Locked On Jaguars, by the way. But at this point, certainly leading into the season, you've got to have Walker Little to assure you can fill in for Cam Robinson injury proneness. Yeah. Much like a certain wise panelist argued for Luke Fortner regarding Mitch Morse last week as the most underrated Jaguar on the roster in 2024. But with all of that, now guessing what Bulky will do, clearly he's going to let Cam Robinson's contract expire and go into the draft. Correct. My question is, does he retain Walker Little at a rebate? That's an interesting conversation.
But then it takes two to tango. And that would mean Walker Little would have to want to be here and that makes this a little bit of a different conversation.
You let him test the market, is what I'm saying. I mean,
Right.
you forced me into wording my answer better, is what I should say. Yeah,
No,
I don't
I fully understand.
Yeah, the Jags hold all the cards. Not at all. Yeah, let him test the market. Did he do enough to show a team that he could be a better option? It's very possible.
And that's where I'm stuck at because Walker Little's not in a position that he would ever be someone who is tagged as far as that's concerned.
Sure.
Then you're kind of stuck with the possibility of, all right, so you're going to lose that guy for the most part, no matter what, because I would believe it would be unlikely that he would be interested in staying after not being given the opportunity to start already. When I think most reasonable Jaguar fans have already said, just based on the money and the performance, that he probably should have already been the left tackle. Just because, again, if you're that close in performance, even if it's just that close, and you're that significantly different in cost, kind of makes sense. And he still hasn't been giving that role. I would probably want to test that market also. I think he's probably shown enough to be given that role somewhere else with with the high a low risk kind of a low risk deal, maybe a high value deal, kind of something like that. I
Oh,
see it. I can just see it. That's all.
well, when he enters the market, people will want to snag Cam Robinson first on the strength of reputation. And some desperate team will look past his injury history. So there's that aspect. So Cam Robinson, I think we got accounted for. What makes Walker Little interesting is, what if the Jags say, hey, Anton's going to the left side, but I will throw a good bag at you if you stay here and play the right. That's an interesting conversation, because I think they need somebody in to teach the rookie that's going to fill Cam Robinson's proverbial spot. I mean, you should always draft beef anyway to some extent, which Trent Baalke will do. That's one thing about Trent Baalke, despite my bitterness towards what he did, to the fact that the damn Chargers now have a coach that I love that should have never left San Francisco in the first place. Hashtag I said it. Sorry. Wounds run deep. But I make those jokes and say those share that true pain to say there's going to need to be somebody in that's a veteran presence. I don't know that Anton Harrison is that guy in the tackle room, right?
That's not wrong.
Yeah, I think Walker could be, think the offensive line version of Arden Key, that likable dude that's going to jump in there and be that teacher type. Now, is Walker Little that guy? I don't know. So
I don't. So if I'm giving my prediction of what Trent Baalke will do, I will say first, if the Jaguars start the season, and we talked just last week about the fact that they start off with the rough, 5 to 6, well, realistically first 5 games, and let's say the Jaguars start off winning, I don't know, one of those games or something like 1-4. I absolutely see a situation where Cam's gone, like traded by week 5, 6, 7, something along those lines, and then you just have Walker Little kind of playing, or you just switch Anton over to the other side at that point.
I explored scenarios on Jaguars on SI involving trading him. Bing!
Right. So I can see that. But on the off chance, let's just say let's not go crazy. And obviously, the Jaguars are 3-2, or they're 5-0, or whatever. At that point, then I could see a situation where it's just you have neither one of these guys signed. You just let them both go, and that's what you got. That's what you drafted Foster for. You drafted Foster to be your future right tackle, and let Anton switch over to the left hand to the left tackle spot next year, and then you draft another guy, and that helps you with the money, because again, you got to pay likely Campbell, you got to pay maybe Cisco, you got Trevor already got the bag, and you got Josh Hines Allen already got the bag. Like, the money's coming.
In 2 years, you got to get Etienne too.
I love ETN, but I don't know, man. I don't know if it's gonna happen. The running back position, man. That's what it comes down to.
It is what. No, and I hear all that. Listen, we'll have plenty of time to break that problem down as we get closer to that bridge. But suffice it to say, if the question is, now I answer what I think should happen. I think one of those tackles should be replaced by a youth, and one of them should be retained. because that's an awful lot of beef to replace, and that's awful lot of assumption that Foster is going to pan. If Foster becomes the next Anton Harrison, bah, okay. Let me be clear.
Has this team shown you that they are all in on bringing all these different linemen in to strengthen the line, or have they shown you that they're going to make these incremental changes in the hopes that they're going to develop these players? Like they drafted Ben Barch and Luke Fortner, and they did nothing else as far as the O line was concerned at that point, as far outside of the first round draft pick tackle. You only get 1 to 2 bites at the apple every season for the most part. That we knew they had an issue run blocking last season, and they still just brought in who? Like they brought in the tackle. They brought in the tackle, and they just said, "All right, Ben Barch, we're good. Let's do this again." And it obviously didn't work. And we knew we had Luke Fortner, and they didn't bring anybody else in at that point. So my overall goal or thought process there is, I don't see them just going wholesale, doing anything different. I think they actually believe that we are going to be this draft and develop team. We're going to have to develop Foster. It's going to have to hit. We're going to have to develop Hodges. It's going to have to hit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, yeah. No, and so that's, I'll put it this way. If you're saying, it's not that I dislike it. Let me put it that way. But I would also add the element that this team has a history of when something mollywops them, they react. Please welcome to the whole entire reason why Christian Kirk is on this damn roster. Shaquille Griffin shut down Larry Fitzgerald, but the Cardinals still dominated on the strength of one Christian Kirk just crushing them. And you might have been standing next to me the first time you were in the locker room with me when I asked Kirk about this. You think that might have been a factor? Maybe a little bit,
Yeah, I can see that.
But so if I say that, if they get mollywopped by the Fortner situation and then they do what they did and repair it, I think they'd be slow to double down on a guy that's struggling. That being said, I don't think Foster's going to struggle quite that much. Also, all I'm implying with Foster is maybe he's not a starter in year 2.
Yeah,
because it takes longer to develop O linemen than it has ever before. But we're spending entirely too much time on this questions, I should say. So long story short is we both think Trent's going to have those guys test the market, and Foster's going to be a factor. I think you're right. They will try to develop in, and they're going to draft another guy. Right. They're going to draft another guy. That's
they're going to try to get cheaper. I mean, honestly, exactly like the Buffalo Bills are now that they're finally seeing the big parts of the contract extension for Josh Allen. So, this is going to be the mirror image that Jaguars want to become more vertical, and they're going to get a cheaper offensive line. It's the exact same playbook.
I mean, hey, drafting good tackles is key to keeping Mega in the house when he does good this year. Just saying. Anyway.
Yes, sir.
So with that in mind, let's go ahead and jump to this next question that I will flash on the screen here as soon as I hit the button. There we go. From the Burning Churro. I love that name, by the way. Is O-line still the biggest concern roster-wise, or has it shifted everywhere else? Now, I'll answer this first because my answer is quick. We already know what my answer is. Bam! Yes. Mega, make NTN great again. Fix the O-line. All that happy stuff. Travis, how do you answer?
Oh man, shout out to Ryan Nielsen. I didn't know he was in the Jaguars Discord, but burning churro. Yeah, we talked about this in last week's Duval dive. Take a listen if for anybody who missed it. The Jaguars offensive line has to obviously be better at short yardage situations, running the ball specifically. We said that was going to be the biggest thing for this season. Yes, but is it the biggest concern? I have a problem saying yes to that immediately because my biggest concern is actually this young man on the screen. And it's just a question of, Mr. Nielsen, are you able to replicate again in the first season what you did in Atlanta for the Atlanta Falcons defense for this Jacksonville Jaguars team? Are you able to have this team firing on all cylinders to open up a very rough first 5 games? Again, we'll know immediately if what this team's going to be, because they open up against the Miami Dolphins. Are they going to be the Denver Broncos and get 70 points put up on them? Or are they going to be something like the Raiders and hold them to 14? Like that's a legit question super early in the season for a team that's going to stretch your communication as far as your DBs and your linebackers are concerned. So my biggest concern especially me being the DB guy and knowing how much communication there is back on that defensive backside and on the defense, is can he do this again and do it early? That's a big question for me.
I mean, listen, there's a reason why you and I question whether or not the Jags will win week 1 against that track meet with a brand new scheme.
Right.
I'll just leave that at that. And fortunately, we have time for this last question.
Oh yes.
Um,
One more.
Travis has been, I can tell you, Travis has been weighing this one heavily back and forth. And listen, enough time for you to bite into the apple appropriately. Just so to it, your favorite matchup this season, either team or position group, like he's saying, like W or corner there. But we're gonna take that as you meaning team or position group. So the Jaguars X position group versus this team's position group, or is there a particular team on the schedule you are looking forward to doing battle with, sir?
I love his name though. I'm sorry.
I forgot to read it. Hold on. I was too busy explaining the question.
Eddie Ho Joe. All right.
Joel. Okay. I mean, apparently he's a golfer. That's what he's referring to.
Yeah, he's a golfer. All right. So Discord group is wild. I'm telling y'all boys, y'all gotta join Jaguars Discord. Yes, if we're talking teams, it's hard not to say the Miami Dolphins early in the season. Again, it's just a barometer. It's like it's you will know who you are early. And it's not to say you can't come back if you have a bad game or that you're going to win the Super Bowl if you know blow the doors off of them. But it's a great gauge of where you are early in the season. And again, I love it. And I'm not going to say that game if you're talking position groups though. Like, but that Tyreek Hill versus Tyson Campbell and Cisco would be a very intriguing matchup that day. But um, I would probably go with something like I'm split. All right, let me talk about it. I'm split. I'm split between it being the Houston Texans who've been talking all this mad offseason nonsense, and they came, they came to our house. They took our crown, man. They came and took your girl. They slapped you and took your crown, man. We got to get that back. We got to beat the best.
They didn't just take your crown. They went into your liquor cabinet and took your crown and poured it in the Coke and had some drinks when they were done.
They took the crown and Coke. Lord. All right. Yeah. So that's a rough one for me. But at the same time, we got the Detroit Lions on the schedule too,
Man,
and that's a hard one for me because in very many ways, but whether it's Trayvon Walker versus Hutchinson, or whether it's Dan Campbell versus Doug Peterson, or whether it's just the GMs and how the differences of how they've been building these teams up from nothing to something at the same time. These teams are mirror images, and the Jaguars have kind of gotten mollywopped 2 times in a row. The last 2 times we faced that team. If you want a measuring stick in the middle of November, that's it. The Lions versus the Jaguars to see who you really are. Are you the team that's going to be physical up front are you going to get pushed around for the 3rd time in a row from this same team? That is a great measuring stick, the Lions versus the Jaguars.
I'm with you. I would say it's the Lions myself, because it's very simple. You mentioned the first 5 games measure who somebody is. I don't agree because it's still young in the season. There's fewer preseason games. Starters playing less preseason, and then there's a new scheme on defense coming in. All of the above.
Okay.
In November, if they do battle with Man Campbell and those Lions, the NFC runner-up Lions, that is a true measuring stick to me. If you just hang in that game, that's impressive in and of itself. You hang a W, then people are going to take you serious.
That's fair, and it's at Detroit. That should be interesting. Yeah.
Point. So, Travis, tell the world.
I can be found on all the socials. Travis D. Holmes. You can find my writings covering the Jacksonville Jaguars at bigcatcountry.com. Training camp starts next week, guys. If you haven't already, and we've been warning you over and over and over again, these things, they go quickly. There are still a few dates left on the Jaguars website. Go to Big Cat Country. We have the link posted there. We also have the FAQs. If you got babies and stuff, you can't bring strollers. There's a few different things you might want to look at. Take a look at the weather. We got it all listed right there for you. It's all one article. Just take a look. Favorite the site. You know what to do. Where can you be found, sir?
keep those parents and new parents involved and protected. I like that. I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the student of the game. Check out my writings with the Jaguars on SI, as well as my work with the Black and Gold Banneret covering UCF, and my work with the 3-point conversion A7BN Sports covering the Orlando Magic. And of course, the Student of the Game podcast. We are doing the 2024 NFL division previews. Many shouts and thanks to the Huddle Up podcast for handling the NFC East while I am in Greece. That is awesome that they did that for me. An honor, joy, and privilege for my personal champion of Big Cat Country, Travis C. Holmes. Until next time, everyone, class dismissed.